Good morning. The SAWS board meeting of February 1st, 2022 is called to order. The San Antonio Water System Board of Trustees will, during the meeting, close the meeting and hold an executive session pursuant to and in accordance with Chapter 551 of the Texas Open Meetings Act. The Board of Trustees may at any time during the meeting close the meeting and hold an executive session for consultation with its attorneys concerning any of the matters to be considered during the meeting pursuant to Chapter 551 of the Texas Open Meetings Act. So next we'll go to public comment. We have a number of individuals with us this morning. I'm going to ask that individuals take up to 3 minutes, and in accordance with our rules, we do not donate time. So with that, I'll call the first person signed to speak, and that is Ron Greene. Yeah, 3 minutes.
Morning, Mr. Mayor, board members. I have a statement that I've circulated. I think you may have a copy. My name's Ron Greene. I'm a resident of Helotes. I'm a groundwater hydrologist and have conducted studies on the Edwards Aquifer for the last couple of decades. I'd like to make a comment on a concept referred to as a tipping point of the Edwards Aquifer. The tipping point occurs when the rate of contaminants entering the aquifer with recharge exceeds the ability of the aquifer to cleanse itself by dilution. This is a debated issue with no clear answer to the conditions under which it would occur. What will happen is that the exceedances of acceptable levels of contaminants will be detected intermittently at different wells. These exceedances will be followed by periods of non-detection due to the ability of the karst Edwards Aquifer to cleanse itself. However, if development over the recharge zone, contributing zone of the Edwards Aquifer continues, the frequency of exceedances and the number of impacted wells will increase to the point that we have lost the battle to protect the recharge of the Edwards Aquifer. In December 2021, just 2 months ago, E. coli bacteria were detected in a SAWS well located on Tippecanoe Street on the west side of San Antonio. The well was removed from production to be disinfected and purged. This rapid flow in the Edwards is a double-edged sword. On one hand, the duration of contamination detection at a well can be fleeting, as was experienced at the Tippecanoe well. Conversely, the speed at which contaminants can show up can often outrun the ability to detect the contaminant. At some point, one of these exceedances may be so severe that populations reliant on that well could be sickened before the contaminant can be detected. Well fields most vulnerable to degradation from contaminated recharge are those located closest to the points of recharge. Given that recharge is coming from the north and west of San Antonio, recharge areas to the north and west of San Antonio are the most important to protect. The proposed Guajolote development is located in some of the most sensitive areas of recharge to the Edwards, the Helotes Creek watershed. This watershed is one of the closest upgradient watersheds from major SAWS pumping centers. It's located in the contributing zone, but only a short distance from the recharge zone, and has multiple creek beds which have significant recharge potential. The Edwards Aquifer Authority dye tracer studies have measured groundwater flow rates of recharge from the contributing zone north of San Antonio in excess of several miles a day. Contaminants released in the Helotes Creek watershed could easily arrive at a SAWS well field in a few days, possibly sooner. A recent study by Southwest Research Institute, funded by the Edwards Aquifer Protection Plan, evaluated the impact of different types of wastewater discharge into the hill country. The study site for this evaluation happened to be the Helotes Creek watershed. I've got about 1 minute, or shall I stop?
That's 3 minutes, Mr. Greene.
Okay.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Susan Bieben, or Bevan. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Good morning, Mayor and trustees. Susan Bevan, 19807 Scenic Loop Road, Helotes, Texas. Just a few comments. Dr. Greene is very hard act to follow. Years ago, a Bexar County engineer and another Bexar County planner told me that staff never visits a property proposed for development unless there's a red flag. So I'm wondering if SAWS staff has been to the Guajolote Ranch. Do the trustees ever visit properties under consideration, even by drone video? It's one thing to look at a map as opposed to a 3D version, viewing the real elevation, the rocky, tree-covered terrain, and then imagining 1,160 acres scraped bare, replaced with 3,000 homes and 2 token trees each. In the stipulations for the developer, the 50% open space sounds great, but currently, the current 10,500 square foot home, the pool, the tennis courts, and any other structures erected can be considered open space, and that's by design with San Antonio. Lastly, I've mistakenly been considering only the quality of the water and not the quantity. I just spent $12,000 replacing my bridge over one of the 2 Helotes Creek branches that transects my property. The huge amount of debris, base, and objects that are coming down the creek during flood events have greatly impacted my property, so I'm wondering what the future damage this development will present. This area, the Guajolote Ranch, is not conducive to high-density development, so I'm hoping that you say no to any sewage treatment options and no to the water CCN. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Lisa Pack.
Good morning, Mayor and trustees. My name is Lisa Murray's Pack. I'm a resident at 15760 Scenic Loop Road. This property includes a half mile of Helotes Creek in the contributing Edwards Aquifer Recharge Zone. My mother, Betty Murray's, spoke before the SAWS board on some of these same issues several years ago. We are not going to give up. I don't object to the development in general. I do specifically object to allowing any development, particularly high-density development, over the Edwards Aquifer Recharge and contributing zones, destroying the quality of Helotes Creek and my well water. I wish to address the proposed Guajolote Ranch development. The Edwards Aquifer Protection Plan was established to protect the aquifer water quality. Millions and millions of dollars were spent to purchase and contract with property owners to achieve protection and to leave this area undeveloped. Several properties downstream of the proposed development have easement agreements or were purchased to ensure protection, including mine. SAWS is aware of the studies that show a negative impact on the Edwards Aquifer and San Antonio's water due to groundwater contamination by sewage discharge from septic and other waste water options. It is not a matter of if, but when this would happen. Are you really going to allow a developer to profit from ruining our major water supply? Would the developer, could anyone pay to rectify such damage? What is the potential cost of losing this natural resource? The cost of replacing it with some other water system? It is my opinion SAWS and the City of San Antonio are making decisions that contradict rules, regulations, and money already spent just to allow this development. Any amendments or changes to existing regulations and recommendations which address density of development and type of wastewater management that protect the Edwards Aquifer must not be ignored. Why should we lose our clean water to a corporation who chose the wrong site and did not do adequate research or just assumed that we could ignore the horrible negative impact? No amount of mitigation or cleanup replaces what's lost.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Pack. Henrietta LaGrange is our next speaker. Our next speaker is Porter Ryan.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Porter Ryan, and I'm on the Board of Directors of the Canyons Property Owners Association. The Canyons is a community located in the contributing zone of the Edwards Aquifer, and we abut the Guajolote tract to its north and east. We fully support the comments of the Greater Edwards Aquifer Alliance and others regarding the negative impacts the Lennar development would have on the Edwards Aquifer. We also support the Aquifer Alliance's position that the utility service agreement for the Lennar development be denied. I could talk about the water service conditions regarding green space and impervious cover and how dense the Lennar housing development will be. I was going to touch on how overwhelmed the local two-lane rural roads would be and the resulting evacuation issues related to fires or floods, and whether schools could keep up with a rapidly increasing student population. But I have other important points that I ask the trustees to consider. As we know, staff has negotiated 9 water service conditions that would be imposed on Lennar, and we appreciate staff's efforts. However, the 9 conditions are just words on a page without compliance oversight and enforcement by SAWS. In this case, SAWS would need to be the cop on the beat for decades. And I ask, is SAWS committed to conducting audits and enforcing the utility service agreement for tens of years? Finally, the residents of the development will eventually pay for the cost of maintenance and operation of the package plant without financial assistance from Lennar. If the resident community is not able to operate the package plant under the terms of the utility service agreement, which is a real possibility, SAWS must step in as the replacement operator before a disaster. I ask, has SAWS identified the steps necessary to become the replacement operator? A package plant on the Lennar development would be a time bomb ticking for years. Please deny the utility service agreement for the Lennar development. Thank you for the time.
Our next speaker is Mr. Stuart Bernbaum.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Board. My name is Stuart Bernbaum. I'm a resident of Helotes and a board member of the Scenic Loop Helotes Creek Alliance. And I wish to address the Guajolote Ranch Utility Services Agreement that you will be considering today. Don't Look Up is the second most watched movie in Netflix's history. It is about scientists trying to convince people that a comet is on a bullseye's course to hit Earth in an extinction-level event. The comet serves as a metaphor for the climate crisis. The scientists' message goes unheeded, and through a combination of inept political decisions influenced by corporate greed to exploit the mineral wealth of the comet and a campaign to malign the science by telling people don't look up so they will not see the truth with their own eyes, any opportunity to save the planet from destruction is lost. And I apologize for having produced this movie spoiler for you if you've not seen it. The Guajolote Ranch tract is being eyed as a location for 3,000 homes on about 1,100 acres on the contributing zone and the headwaters of both Chimney Creek and Helotes Creek, which directly recharges the Edwards Aquifer to the south of the city of Helotes. Research conducted by Southwest Research Institute, Dr. Ron Greene here today, released in a report in 2020 states installing additional wastewater would increase the amount of wastewater discharged to the environment and significantly degrade the watershed and quality of water recharging the Edwards Aquifer. From your website, SAWS' mission is to provide sustainable, affordable water services. Your vision is to be leaders in delivering responsible water services for life, and your values are excellence, integrity, and respect. As is the case with many environmentally sensitive issues, we only get one chance to do things right. In fact, I believe I may be paraphrasing a statement made by Trustee Hardberger during an earlier board meeting. Once the wastewater from this development enters the recharge system, and it will, we will not be able to undo a wrong decision. I ask you to live up to the SAWS mission, vision, and values and reject the utility service agreement for Guajolote development. We do not want this to become a case where the science is ignored to satisfy punchline lost.
Our next speaker is Mr. Carl Ruskowski.
Good morning. Thank you for letting us be here and speak, Mr. Mayor and the council. Again, my name is Carl Ruskowski. I live at 19330 Frank Madlow Road. I'm a plumber by trade, a master plumber by trade, and the motto of the plumber is that the plumber protects the health of the nation. So it begins with us when we're protecting the water that comes into your home, preventing cross-connection contamination. But I think what's in question today is the quality of the water before it gets to your home. There's no doubt that the Guajolote Ranch development is going to affect the quality of the water in some fashion, and none of it is positive, all in a negative way. I myself, as my brother-in-law here and many of those who came today but couldn't come up because of the number of people already here, will be directly affected by this development, especially the water discharged by a sewer treatment plant. We're just a little bit south of the plant. We encompass about a mile between myself and the family, encompass about a mile of Chimney Creek. For those of you who have never been able to walk down Chimney Creek and look at it, Chimney Creek is really a beautiful creek. It's got ferns growing on the walls. It's got moss. It's really a beautiful creek that runs through the ranch. And over the years, actually, when they acquired this property back in 1854 is when the property came into the family. And from that time, this creek has been used for recreational purposes. People have come out for different times of the year, those who can't actually enjoy the outdoors and the water, and enjoy this beautiful, clean water. We use this water for swimming, wading into, and actually catch part of the water and use it as drinking water. It's very pure, very clean. It's a very pristine area. It's very disheartening to think that a development by a home builder is going to actually change this in some manner. The number of septic systems will affect the aquifer. The discharge will affect the creek, kill the springs, the ferns, everything that grows along this creek. Another aspect to this is when this water is discharged, again, like we heard earlier, not so much the quantity as the quality, but also for myself, the quality, since it runs through the property, this volume of water will cut us off access from our own property. The volume, we couldn't get to the cattle on the other side of the creek. And so what kind of infrastructure is a private builder want to provide on private property for those that he will be cutting off access to their own place? So I have much concern about the quantity and the quality of the water that will be affected by this development. So I ask you to please deny. There's several options. None of them are conducive for a clean aquifer. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a request from Trustee McGee. Oh, just recognize that he's here. Okay, sorry. Trustee McGee is in the meeting virtually. Okay. The next speaker is Annalisa Peace.
Hi, my name is Annalisa Peace, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Greater Edwards Aquifer Alliance. While we greatly appreciate the efforts of SAWS staff in negotiating a utility service agreement with Lennar Homes to supply SAWS water to the Guajolote development that are much more protective of the aquifer, and while we recognize that SAWS is required to provide sewage service upon request within the areas in their water CCN, it is the consensus of GIA's member groups to request denial of this utility service agreement. This request for denial is based on our perception that supplying Guajolote with water to serve 3,000 EDUs on this tract is inconsistent with the need to protect San Antonio's Edwards Aquifer water supplies. We are concerned that stormwater pollution and wastewater effluent disposal make this area highly unsuitable for high-density development. It is GIA's intent to contest any application to TCEQ for Lennar to build a sewage treatment plant on the Guajolote tract. GIA's opposition to a wastewater treatment plant on this site is based on the 2020 subject mentioned to you earlier by Dr. Greene. That concluded that regardless of type, any type of additional wastewater systems in the Helotes Creek watershed would increase the amount of wastewater discharged into the environment and significantly degrade the watershed and the quality of water recharging the Edwards Aquifer. We are grateful for the board's recognition of the need to re-examine impacts of SAWS utility service in promoting high-density development on the Edwards Aquifer recharge and contributing zones. It is our hope that the City of San Antonio and SAWS will develop clear policy directives that are consistent with the need to protect San Antonio's primary source of water and are consistent as well with San Antonio's master planning documents in the North Sector Plan. Regarding the need to amend the city's North Sector Plan, we have been informed by city staff that this is a guidance document that does not require amendment for changes within the city's ETJ. Since the change from 10-acre lots as designated for this area in the North Sector Plan represents by far the most dramatic departure from the plan to date, GIA and our local member groups will be asking City Council to take a vote on amending the plan before the city grants any approvals for this development. We thank the board and SAWS staff for your efforts regarding this service agreement. That notwithstanding, we respectfully request that you decline Guajolote's request for water utility service. And while I have some time, I'm going to finish up Dr. Greene's comments. He says the EAPP-funded study determined that the method of wastewater discharge to the environment is secondary to the amount of effluent being discharged. Nope, I didn't get far with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jim Smile.
Good morning.
Morning.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor, trustees, for allowing me to address you today. My name is Jim Smile. I am a member of the Greater Edwards Aquifer Alliance Board, but I'm here today speaking only for myself, neither for GIA nor for my fellow board members. In your consideration today for the approval of the utility service agreement on Guajolote Tract, I think there are two salient facts that you should consider. The first has to do with SAWS' stated policy of neither promoting nor supporting package plants within or near its service area. The second is your duty of care as members of the board, where SAWS implements the city's Edwards Aquifer Protection Ordinance. Relevant to that first, providing water for 3,000 EDUs not only enables, but it requires Lennar to build a package plant within your service area, and that directly contravenes your policy. So it's relevant to the second is the most compelling piece of evidence that you have to consider for your duty of care is this recent study by Southwest Research Institute, which clearly indicates that by approving this type of development, that is going to impact water quality. So given these, what are your options? Well, I think that the options that have not been put on the table, which would be to deny the utility service agreement, retire the CCN, or go back and provide service to something which meets good practices in that area, would be options that are worthy of consideration. What are good practices? Well, the North Sector Plan provides 1 EDU per 10 acres. So right now, that's the metric that we have on what is best practice for that area. As Annalisa has mentioned, there is some indication from city staff that amendments would not be required. However, I think that's something that City Council and the Municipal Utility Committee will need to revisit, given that there's been 25 instances already of amendments within the ETJ. So clearly the precedent is there that both within the contributing zone and within the ETJ, amendments in the past have been required. So a final point on the North Sector Plan is that the North Sector Plan does state that the military will be consulted and advised when a development or a change is being proposed to the plan that falls within its area. This overlaps with the Camp Bullis buffer zone. To date, I have not seen in any presentations to the board where there's been any notification of the military and what their response has been. So I think it would behoove you to get that before enabling an incompatible development within that area. So thank you very much, and I hope in your considerations today, you'll.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Alan Montemayor.
Good morning. I'm Alan Montemayor, chairman of the Alamo Group of the Sierra Club. Many speakers before me have very eloquently spoken against Guajolote Ranch and urged you to deny the USA. I will do the same. The North Sector Plan clearly delineates this property as 10 acres per house. The number of EDUs being asked for by the developer is way in excess of what is sustainable and what is good for the citizens of San Antonio, as many people have already addressed. So I'm going to ask you to reject that, and the Sierra Club will not countenance any kind of development that is not sustainable, any kind of development that is going to decrease the water quality of the city of San Antonio and the ratepayers of SAWS. This really stands out as one that we need to act upon. And I'm counting on the mayor and the city council to give firm guidance to SAWS and cooperate with SAWS to enforce things like the North Sector Plan that were put in place to protect us as citizens. And I'm calling upon each of you, as you make the discussion and decisions today, to do the right thing for the people that not only live downstream, but for all the citizens of San Antonio who really expect clean water from the Edwards Aquifer. I would also like to address item 20, the purchase of a polymer which goes into the biosolids waste stream. We and you as board members really need to begin addressing plastics in our environment. This would be the approval of 3 million pounds of polymer, which is derived from petroleum, that is going to go into that waste stream I don't think that we necessarily want that in the long term. I think that there may be options that Jeff Habe is going to investigate and talk about, but we really need to get rid of plastic in the waste stream. So I'm asking that you deny the purchase of this polymer, at least temporarily, or defer it until additional information can be gathered about what the options are. Additionally, there's been mention of spending $2.25 million on bottles of water. Again, it's plastic in our environment. I ask that you put in a policy that your crews don't use bottled water, that you go back to having reusable water bottles and drink the SAWS water rather than bottled water. And I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. I do not take that for granted. And I hope that you will hear the words of all that have spoken here today. But we're not up here trying to make a buck off this. We are up here to protect the citizens of San Antonio. We're speaking from the heart. We're speaking for the good of our children and all the ratepayers. Thank you for listening.
Our next speaker is Paul Samalo. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Good morning, Mayor and trustees. My name is Paul Samalo. I'm a resident of the Chimney Creek subdivision, which is a rather old subdivision that's immediately adjacent to the southwest corner of the proposed Guajolote Ranch tract. My wife and I have lived in Chimney Creek since we built our house there in 1993, and it was already well established long before that. And our property shares a fence line with the Guajolote Ranch. Chimney Creek's a low-density subdivision with large lots. The domestic water for all the households in the subdivision is derived entirely from individual wells. A few people augment with rainwater catchment. We have no other water sources available to us. We in Chimney Creek are concerned about how a high-density 3,000 home development as proposed for the Guajolote Ranch tract would impact the quality and safety of our groundwater, that is which every household in our community is wholly dependent. And that's true of other communities around the proposed tract as well. Specifically, we're concerned about infiltration of groundwater by percolation of septic system effluent containing soaps, detergents, other household chemicals, solvents, prescription and over-the-counter drugs, and so forth. We're concerned about lawn and garden runoff containing pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers, petroleum contamination from vehicle leakage and asphalt weathering, and untreated sewage discharge within the Guajolote Ranch development from failures that may occur in proposed sewage treatment plant operations and outflow lines. Obviously, because the proposed development lies within the Edwards Aquifer Contributing Zone, these concerns also apply to outflows of these contaminants into Chimenea and Helotes Creeks, which ultimately will deliver them to the Edwards Aquifer, thus adding to the contamination burden of the city of San Antonio's primary water supply. Since residents of Chimney Creek and other communities in surrounding the proposed Guajolote Ranch tract have no alternative water sources, contamination of groundwater would render our homes unlivable and properties virtually valueless. What measures would be available to furnish safe, reliable water should our groundwater become unusable for our domestic purposes? I respectfully submit that the risks of rendering unsafe the groundwater resources that comprise the sole domestic water supplies of many homes surrounding the proposed Guajolote Ranch tract development are too great to justify approval of a utility service agreement that promote instruction of this high-density community that's been proposed by Lennar on 1,160 acres of the current Guajolote Ranch. This does not even touch on what it might do to the San Antonio water supply. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mayor Charles Thornton.
Mayor, trustees, thank you. I think you each have a packet that I dropped off. I think we mailed one also. This letter is to advise you that the City of Gray Forest City Council held a special meeting on December 22nd, 2021, to pass a resolution 2021-17R resolution of the City Council of the City of Gray Forest expressing opposition to the development of the Guajolote track project. The passed resolution further addresses opposition to the infrastructure sewer options for multiple new lift stations, oversized gravity sewer mains, on-site water treatment plants, opposition to the extension and development of a sewer CCN at the proposed location and any location along the creeks due to negative environmental impacts, disruption to the natural creek system, direct and indirect impacts, and opposition to the San Antonio Water System Board of Approval thereof. In the City of San Antonio's North Sector plan, stakeholders expressed a strong desire to retain existing rural character in the northwest quadrant, where several historic trails, scenic corridors exit. The plan further provides goals that appear to have been disregarded by SAWS. In Chapter 3 of the City of San Antonio City Council recommended conserving and managing the native tree canopy, protect endangered species in the area, respect all natural hill country features such as the steep slopes, soils, native trees, natural vistas, and continue best management practices to preserve water quality. It appears that Chapter 3 of the City of San Antonio's plan has been totally disregarded by SAWS and ignored by the City of San Antonio's council requests by not adhering to its past and approved plans. The residents of the City of Gray Forest ask for you respect its opposition to the Guajolote track project. A disregard to this request could inevitably impact the people, endangered wildlife, vulnerable plant life, and a struggling ecosystem that is protected by the residents of the City of Gray Forest dating back to the early 1900s. As the mayor of the City of Gray Forest, this letter is to request that the SAWS Board of Trustees read our resolution opposing the development of the Guajolote track project. Additionally, we ask that you recognize the City Council of the City of Gray Forest, its citizens and community as stakeholders, very determined to protect its natural and cultural resources. That's all in the statement. I just wanted to add a couple of other things. A lot of folks have talked about the environmental impacts, but it's also going to be a quality of life impact because with 3,000 homes, there's going to be probably 9,000 cars. And it's a 2-lane road, no matter which way you go, come out of Guajolote track. So I'm wondering if the developer is going to front money to take care of that problem, because that's going to be a big problem once they build these, just like happened on 471, the Alamo Ranch, and further out 471. That had been a nightmare for a long time. After the developers leave, there's still a problem to deal with. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Our next speaker is Myfie Moore.
I'm Myfie Moore. I live right down the street on River Road, but we ranch next door to the Guajolote. Our ranch is called Rancho Blanco. It was founded in 1924 by my grandfather, and it is my best friend on this planet. We have butterflies, bats. The Native Plant Society comes out and goes crazy over amazing plants that are there. If you want to come out, I would love to take you on a tour. I'll take you swimming or boating or fishing or birding. You'll be amazed. It's an oh my God, beautiful place. The lake we have, you can swim in it and you can drink it while you swim. It's gorgeous water. See straight to the bottom of the lake. I used to live on Chimney Creek, very familiar with being there. I was there 25 years. We did wells and septic, had no problems. At the end, we put in a big rainwater system, so it's wonderful water out there. Ron and Robert and trustees, this is a really simple issue. It's not easy for you because of the profits for SAWS, the profits for this developer. But this is a really simple, right or wrong issue. There are many experts that have spoken among my neighbors. I doubt all the trustees know as much as their scientific expertise. I've been amazed at how brilliant our neighbors are. This whole thing is about profits for the developers and for SAWS over the sickness that you would create for our fellow humans and damaging God's earth. This is simple. This is right or wrong. Please listen to these people that live on this water. Do integrity. Do integrity. Do right action. Don't do wrong action. It's very simple. It's about integrity to your fellow humans and to God's earth. Thank you.
Our last speaker is Emery Bloom.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Emery Bloom. I'm the president of Scenic Loop Helotes Creek Alliance, which was formed to protect and maintain the status of our 6,000-acre rural park-like neighborhood along Scenic Loop Road from Bandera to Babcock. I'm here today with my neighbors that share property lines on all four sides of Guajolote track referenced in agenda item number 18, and many other residents will be impacted downstream from this proposed project. The map on the reverse of the handout that I provided shows that our neighborhood is already platted into appropriately sized large rural single-family residential tracts. Let me share our perspective of your water CCN in our northwest region of Bexar County. As you know, CCN stands for Certificate of Convenience and Necessity. Do you know how many of our neighborhoods, thousands of residents, depend upon SAWS for water? 0. Do you know how many of our residents, our neighborhoods, thousands of residents depend on SAWS for wastewater? 0. SAWS services in this region do not provide us convenience or necessity. This Guajolote project by Lennar Homes of Texas and potentially others to follow is only here because at some point in the past, SAWS obligated itself to provide water services to this region via your water CCN. Existing property owners who live in this region, the Edwards Aquifer Protection Program from the City of San Antonio, and the strategic plan put forth by the City of San Antonio demonstrate no desire for your utility in this region. We provide for our own water needs and have done so for generations. The only ones who benefit from SAWS utility service in our region of Northwest Bexar County are the nation's largest residential development companies, not the property owners who live here, nor those who seek to protect our community's sensitive water supply. The majority of property owners in this region of Northwest Bexar County are collectively requesting that you consider what you've heard here this morning when you vote on agenda item number 18. 1, we request that this Board of Trustees not commit SAWS to any utility service agreements in this specific region at this time. Engineers tell you what you can and cannot do. Scientists tell you what you should or shouldn't do. Consider the science. And 2, we urge that SAWS immediately begin the process of withdrawing your water CCN, where services are not already contractually obligated in the region between Two-Top Beauregard Road, Highway 16 Bandera Road, and west of our neighborhood's easternmost border. Thank you for your time.
Next, we have item 4, which is a